All right, we're live. It is AmericasScrum with Sam and Pavel and Thomas. Let's hit up a bit of a screen share there. What was I just looking at? Something we chose. Here we go. It was the organizers meeting I had. I should plug over here and grab us into the memos. Pavel, how are things with you?
Well, yesterday I carried out AmericasScrum with Nikita and Craig, and we almost finished our second sprint. We have 3 stories which weren't complete, but we're going to do them today, and 1 story we can't complete until the sprint. But it is much better than previous one, and it seems that we are going in normal pace now. Yeah. So for tomorrow we are going to have client meeting with Osro, so we will show what we did, and yeah, that's it. After that, retrospective and planning, you know, as usual, Scrum. Yeah.
Great. So nothing in particular blocking you?
No, nothing blocking.
Okay. I guess, yeah, you're probably off to bed next.
Well, in 1 hour, you know, because in 1 hour we have AmericasScrum.
Oh, okay, all right. You got right. Okay. Yeah. Okay, good stuff. All right, Thomas.
Let's do you first. I have a baby in the background here, so if it's okay.
Yeah. So me, since the last Scrum, I did the Autograders client meeting. The guys had a lot of questions. I mean, it's yeah, a lot of stuff to do with the studio, the textbook. Yeah, that kind of went on for 45 minutes. Yeah, I've got a list of action items to do for that. I'm now switching to doing that every 2 weeks and rotating with one other person to make sure I don't, that I give Makers Academy their full money's worth. Today was mainly a big day on coding on Ronin, which is our online course solution for makers. Sinatra, refactoring, pairing with Dan here, who's my cohort in engineering crime. Yeah, big discussion with Yarrow and Thomas about how to manage the whole project things and things. I think it's an ongoing, very interesting. How people get to work with each other. I was just having a discussion with the CEO here about the PayPal mafia, and apparently how the guys who founded PayPal, they're like 7 guys. They went on they went their separate ways afterwards, and they independently founded LinkedIn, SpaceX, Palantir. Basically $7 billion companies, and I mean, discussing how I think it's like saying, well, at least my hypothesis about how people do really well at that is, being able to stay on focus and extraordinary people management skills. I think that's kind of the key to the success of teams. But yeah, so going forward tomorrow, I got nothing technical blocking me. I'm continuing to do a big refactoring on local support, more blog posts coming, I think. Tomorrow I'm going to be working from home and trying to do a local support client meeting. Yeah, that's about it from my side of things. I guess with the AV102, I guess I'm a little worried about how many re-records we'll need to do in the AV102 going forward. I guess what would be fantastic from both Pavel and Thomas, I know last time around you recorded kind of like weekly updates for people. If you guys are in a position again to do weekly updates, maybe we can even reuse your ones from last year. That would be great, I think, to going in the updates section, just to kind of like be pushing it along. I have a little bit of time on Tuesday evenings where I might be able to re-record, as I did last night for the AV102, but yeah, we'll see how we go. Yeah, and that's about it for me. Thomas, are you up for doing you now?
Yeah, kind of.
Sure.
They're just getting ready here. Anyway, yes, well, not much has happened with me since the last Scrum. I've been working a little bit on writing some tests for the project landing page Mercury editor, and I'm getting there. I'm getting ready to do a pull request. I had a conversation with John right after the last Scrum.
Right.
And I'm a little worried about stuff. We were talking about some high-level, scenarios, and the current pull request that is submitted to GitHub, and we're not quite on the same page here. We were to reconvene later today. He stated that he only had limited time working on this project, henceforward, so he already offered me 10 minutes, and I kind of sense that it's perhaps not the right thing to do now, so I just kind of passed on that because Brian couldn't join us anyway, so we'll see how we'll deal with that issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that I sense from John and I think Sly, who moved over to the Oscar project and so on, is that I think that they were frustrated with having done kind of coding and not having their stuff, just kind of being pulled in. And I mean, I think, in some ways, it's kind of I think that's something they have to get used to. It's difficult. It's difficult. Like, I think people, want to code in a certain direction, and then as project manager, we want to take them in a different direction. I had a similar, I think, an issue with John Moorbacher on the local support project, where he was just sort of coding in a way, and it took many iterations of going backwards and forwards to bring the code that he was submitting into line with my vision of the project. And I think we got there, but it took up a huge amount of time. I think it took a lot of effort and input from both me and from John Moorbacher, and not everybody's up for that amount of time. I think some people want to code and they want to go and submit and they want to get it over with. But yeah, it's a complicated trade-off.
We also spoke about. I tried to explain to John, and I'm happy to explain it to anybody that's interested about the workflow that we have and why we have this workflow. See, I remember I learned the hard way as well. It's perhaps not. Perhaps I didn't have as much, issues with you as John had, Moorbacher had, but I remember, sometimes you asking very, unpleasant questions, but like, where is your, scenarios, where is your view specs, controller specs, and I was like, what are you talking about? It's working software,
Right.
I'm frustrated with you.
Fantastic stuff from you that I would love to still use, but of course it was like, we didn't have any Jasmine testing and so on. And
but I remember that, and I think it's I learned a lot from it, and I think it's what we have agreed upon and what we have built, both local support and website one, is the agile method with a certain workflow with stuff that needs to be there in order for us to use that. That's also a problem. In another context, spikes shouldn't make it to production. Spikes are spikes, and production software is something completely different. And so, but anyway, back to this subject. We're talking about some infrastructure refactorings and stuff that I don't understand because there is no higher, there is no connection between what I'm seeing in the pull request and stories in Pivotal Tracker or some features, some scenarios in and I'm kind of worried about that. So as I brought that up, and we'll see where we are.
Yeah, ultimately it may be that just John can't, that one can't reach agreement there, and it may be that he loses interest in the product, or maybe he will go through a process of discovery and we'll work something out. But I think either way, it's we just got to be open to it. Can go either way, and we don't have that much control. As I was saying to Yarrow today, we can control how we behave, but we can't control how other people behave.
Exactly. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we just try and do our best with our behavior, and other people choose how they want to behave.
Absolutely. And it's at the end, it's a little bit up to me. I might as well just end up merging his pull request in if I want to deviate from the path that we've chosen about how we do things.
Yeah.
But this is something I need to think about.
Isn't it? Because there's an extent to which you want to get features out, and you want to have people. What I think is there's a general thing. As a general rule, and I'm sure you follow this yourself anyway, but is receiving pull requests from the OpenShift community. One needs to give feedback of some sort. The feedback has to be turned around very quickly in order to prevent people from losing interest. And then, it's just really hard because you've got to use your judgment as a project manager about where to draw the line, and it's the line is not necessarily clearly demarcated, and it's going to come down to your judgment call. It will be very interesting to see, if Yarrow, his project moves forward, if he can succeed with an alternative. Like, I get the sense from that he would like a situation where there isn't a single project manager who can say yay or nay on a final pull request. That it's kind of, whether a pull request gets merged is a function of a kind of a group selection process. And but if he's cunning, maybe he'll get that to work. But it'll be very interesting to see.
We use this approach on Ostra.
Yeah, I was just about to say that I'm following the discussions on the Ostra channel, and they are doing a great job with reaching consensus about their pull request, and so that's a different style, So.
Sure, but that's interesting, Pavel. But so in Ostra, I can see that. I can imagine that it's not so difficult to reach consensus. What I would be worried about is how the code base is evolving. I mean, I don't know if you're getting any sense of how the code base is evolving for Ostra.
Well, we decided that if 2 out of 3 developers agree on something, we can merge, and it doesn't matter which 2 developers do it. And I don't know what it will be in the end. We'll see how it works. But it is definitely faster than to wait for someone who can merge with pull request or wait until all of developers agree on it, So we decided that 2 of developers can do it if they feel quite confident about what we are doing. Because if you don't know this exactly, idea or how this works, it's better for you not to do that. So it's just common sense,
Yeah.
We'll see. I hope it works. At least
it sounds like a good compromise, and I think that it certainly could work for a small scale project. Or I think that it might work very well, where you've got people who've got a lot of system architecture experience. My concern would be that over time, different methodologies and so on would creep on that would basically cause for a high level of complexity in the code base. That's my motivation for a single person being responsible ultimately for whether things are merged or not, is to ensure that there's one person who is has got that coherent picture in their head. And but that would be fantastic. If Osra goes on and is sort of an extraordinary success and scales very well and is a big thing, I will have to eat my hat, and it's not a very tasty hat either. But Sam,
it's a normal approach. We in ITIL we have in good practices we have change committee, and with change committee agree on changes to production systems. It's same as merge and pull requests, but
But you don't have a system architect who's ultimately responsible for the code.
No, of course not. And even when the project is very big, it's maybe many system architects, and what else? In these system architects, you need to use changing board, because you need to a committee of some architects to do that. So one responsible person is just one of the approach, but it works only for middle-sized projects, for small or middle-sized projects. It won't work for big projects too. So I hope to implement change committee, but for now we decided that change committee, if it is 2 developers and doesn't matter who 2 of them from the project.
You're talking about Ostra. You're talking about your company that you work for now. You're talking about Ostra.
I discussed Ostra as an application of it, but of course I used that in the company that I worked for.
Are you saying that you have used sort of design by committee?
Yes, change committee. Yeah.
Successfully on large scale projects.
Yes, yes, it's a normal approach. It's what IT practices told us to do. Yes,
Right,
with the
right.
change
But I mean,
committee.
the reality is, I believe that most software projects fail. But
Yes,
so
definitely. But
yeah,
it's not about project. It's more about development of, about maintenance of projects which are in already was developed and you
I see. It's
implement.
not the
Yeah.
product creation; it's project long-term project
Yes.
maintenance.
Yes, because while project wasn't implemented, it is in project stage. And in project stage, there's different approaches. You know,
Mhm.
there may be one architect, there may be some architects, but just different things. What we see now in website one, we have production, and so we have maintenance, not like development of website one, but
Right.
maintenance.
Although from the agile development note, the philosophy says that basically development and maintenance are one. They
Yes.
are, from day one you are in maintenance mode, and if anything, there is just a gradual shift from one to the other. There's not a clear line where you go from development to maintenance. I would say that it's pretty organic, particularly as regards a project like Website One.
We are very much in development mode still, in certain areas of this application,
Yeah.
and in other we are in maintenance
Yeah,
mode. But
I have to say, yeah, thank you so much, Pavel, for sharing the perspective. It's very interesting to hear that your company is using that methodology. And I mean, I think, yeah, I think, in Agile Ventures, I'm very pleased to see a diversity of projects and people using different, management styles. And I think, hopefully moving forward, we can all learn from each other, by trying out a combination of these styles. I think, I mean, just actually to talk to you, I'm kind of, I think I'm a kind of like a flexible, easygoing guy. I think one of the things that I've sort of stuck to my guns is I feel like, it's up to for a given project, it's up to the project manager how they run their project, and that's, we can give advice or whatever, but at the end of the day, the person who starts a project, is the person who is going to define, a project flow and their management style. But that seems like, I think the alternative is that we would try to impose particular management styles on certain other people's projects, and that just doesn't seem like the right way to go. I don't know if either.
Well, anyway, just on a quick note, I'm impressed by the way Motasem is running that show.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's great. I feel it's not a very complex application yet. It's more of administrative data processing.
Right.
I think to compare Ostra with Website One is like apples and pears. So it's a different it's a completely different project. But I think they managed to build up a great team. I remember this project. I was the one pulling that in back in the good old days. But and I'm very happy for them. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah,
and I had the privilege to be in a client meeting last week, and I was very impressed by the way Matas handled that. So.
Great stuff. Yeah, what would be lovely is if we had, I don't know, at some point if they may have some site that we might actually be able to show as an example of what they've done. On re-recording the AB102, introduction. This time earlier in the year, I had used the Cordelia as an example of a project that was just taking off on Website One. I kind of, I would have done the same with Ostra this time if there had been something, particular to show. I mentioned it, but there's not. I mean, and maybe there never will be because, as I say, it's interesting. Anyway, but Thomas, yes, a nice chat there. Anything else to add on your update?
Well, the only thing is the reason I asked you to join in.
You're stuck on some Git related stuff.
Yes. So GitHub, mostly GitHub related stuff, actually.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, we can have a breakout meeting afterwards to do that, and maybe a client meeting as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, before we do that, I guess just to go back to, Pavel, do you think that the approach that I'm taking here, which is to say that people who start projects in Agile Ventures have the responsibility to choose how those projects are run?
Yeah, I think it's a wrong approach. Sorry.
Or you think that's the wrong approach?
Yes, I think that's wrong because, like any business, someone start business, but that doesn't matter what he when decide or she decide how to maintain that business. You know, when coming like professional managers and they decide what to do. It should be how to manage a project should be decided by the stakeholders of this project, right? And stakeholders of this
Well,
project.
yeah, that's an interesting idea. Yeah,
It's,
sorry, go on. Yeah.
You are stakeholder, Thomas is stakeholder, I'm stakeholder, and many other participants stakeholders of a project. And because all of us influenced by that project, we should decide how it is better to be managed. And there may be different approaches to do that. One architect, 2, 3 architects, committee of architects.
Right, sure, right.
And from that decision, it depends what would be quality, what would be the speed of that project, how many stories we can finish, and so on and so forth. And I think it's a better idea to discuss it between stakeholders, so we can use the right approach.
I think there's no disagreement on my part that it should be discussed between the stakeholders. Clearly, yes. that's true. But what I'm saying is, you know, I mean, should we be imposing on, like, so we have a cluster of projects. Should, you know, if, for example, that I thought that, you know, having a single stakeholder was the way to go, right, or having a single system architect, that should I go to OSRA and say, you should do it this way?
No, of course not, because we should use, for every project, we should discuss how it should be managed.
Right. Of course. But I think that ultimately, I think that the, you know, the person, at least in the first instance, you know, the person who starts that project, you know, like, it seems to me that at least, you know, Yarrow has presented, you know, he's like the community portal, and he started that project with, here's a specification of how it's going to be run, right? Now, I'm not saying, I'm sure he'll be open to debate on, you know, exactly how it be, but it's like, that's a sensible thing to allow the initiator to set the flow. No? Or you think we should say that a priori Agile Ventures projects should be run in a certain way?
Can I say something? I'm a little bit in between you two guys. I think that we should have a core set of values. This is just a thought, you know, but I'm leaning toward saying, you know, first of all, we are Agile Ventures, which basically means that we have that in our about statement that we use Agile methods, and you know, so could this be a requirement for our projects, for you know, for our project managers? Perhaps it could be. I don't know. That at least that we use those you know, this set of tools that we, you know, we talk about, like, you know, story-based project management tool like Pivotal Tracker, you know, to support the Agile method and blah blah blah. Perhaps that could be a quote-unquote requirement. But then, you know, whether they want to be a democratic or a you know, despotic leader, you know what I mean. That's a different thing. Well, I do believe we should have a core value.
We kind of encourage that. We certainly do, and of course there's different levels of that. I mean, we also have a commitment to open source. I think if people came in and they tried to set up and use a system, they set up a project in here that was entirely for paying people and was closed source, I think we would, you know, want to have words with them about that. But I'm interested, Pavel. Then, but I mean, there is a situation in that, you know, as the person who, you know, I mean, Thomas obviously built this site, but as the person like myself, I came up with the concept of Agile Ventures originally. Then even if I don't want to have, then I have some authority in terms of people will maybe marginally more listen to me when I make suggestions of things going this way or that way. But, you know, but do you think, Pavel, that I should be stepping into projects more and insisting that they are run in a certain way?
Well, I insist that we should use Agile approach, actually, because we are Agile Ventures. And what Agile approach said to us, that for every project we should actually the team of a project should decide how it is better to be managed and to be done, you know. And what we have, for example, in website 1, what I suggest to do, it's like to have retrospective meeting about website 1 and discuss how it was. That was good that we have project manager with all decision in his hands, or maybe it is not that good and we should have committee, I don't know, what else, and discuss with the team members, but between the key stakeholders, and it should be product owner, it should be stakeholders, and I don't know what we decide, but it's very important for the team to decide about
to have that discussion.
That's
I would agree. I think that you're right that the retrospective is important, that I think that the discussion is important. I think we have in Agile, that's, I think, imagined to take place with a team that's being paid to be somewhere, right, where the team is clearly demarcated. Then to say that every, team member is kind of equally, that like it's basically up to the team to achieve consensus and then move in that direction is one thing. I think the difficulty for the loose cohesion of people that we have and open source projects is that it's not necessarily clear that everybody has the same, they're not all in the same setup. I mean, so it's kind of, I think where the team can achieve consensus, that's great. I think we should certainly be pressing people to have retrospectives, but it's, that it comes down to this question of, is there any authority? Ultimately, there isn't. But I mean, my impression was with website 1 that we had a very vigorous debate in which Yarrow demanded, increasing levels of specification that the project should go in a certain way, or demanding to know that it was like this and it was like this and this, and many people, particularly Thomas and Brian, worked hard, from what I saw, to try and define that. But it seemed to come down to, the bottom line was, Yarrow and maybe others were not happy with that particular approach. I guess consensus could not be achieved, and so Yarrow and others have moved to different projects. But that's what happens, right? When if it was a agile team in a company, breaking up and doing different projects would not necessarily be an option, right?
Well,
we are a loose confederation of volunteers, so ultimately, if consensus can't be achieved on any one given project, it makes sense that people do different projects, right?
Well, yes, but for example, if we need to work together, what should we do? I think that in this case, we should make retrospective about key stakeholders. Actually, not about all members. We should understand that not all members are equal, right? That's true. We should discuss what is to be the equal member for the project. You need to have some input to do that. But between equal members, we should discuss how we should go through that problem, through that conflict, through that questions, and decide. Decide. Yeah. What I think, Yarrow, think that like you and Thomas and Brian decided something, yes, but we had like other members who wasn't say anything, and we are going to more autocratic project. I
mean, I've had, Sly has talked to me directly about his feelings about the projects. Yarrow repeatedly talks to me about many people who express things to him and how he is merely just a mouthpiece for a huge number of discontented individuals. I have exhorted everyone to talk to me, to express their opinions in public forum or behind the scenes. I mean, I think that the bottom line in the debate I think ultimately Thomas and Brian and myself, as key stakeholders of the Website 1 project, were saying, this is how we see it going. And clearly there was, I think Yarrow and maybe some others would have preferred to have like more of a committee-based approach. But ultimately, right, I mean, one has to reach consent, like, reaching consensus is not, for example, Thomas and myself and Brian just conceding to the other people's position. I thought that we were, what's unfortunate, I think, is, describing it in retrospect, it can seem like that it's just a question of trying to work out the differences. What, of course, became unfortunate was how it became very kind of personal, and that kind of forces it into a realm where it's difficult to carry on having the discussion. I think if people are not careful, it's it just, you kind of like, you have to get away. I mean, again, it's like if we were a company where the success or failure relied on this, and everybody's could be hired and fired, then yes, and someone could say, right, yes, I don't care. Let's keep on discussing this and discussing this and discussing this, and to spend as much time until consensus is reached. But we all have very limited time, so we can't discuss it endlessly.
No, that's true. Sam, what I wanted to say, like you said, Thomas is your project lead, so Thomas decided, right? That's what you said. Actually, that wasn't true, because not only Thomas decided that, but you was and Brian, right? But
well, I think that was particularly that Thomas was away, and he appointed Brian to be the project lead in his absence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and then Thomas returned and resumed that role, and Brian's also very busy, and so I think Brian has stepped back from that role now.
Maybe, but I just saying that for me, you shouldn't say like Thomas, because Thomas is a project manager, he decided and that's it. No, you had a discussion, and as a team, we decided to do something, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's entirely. But for me, as trying to be the client, impartial, as it were, ultimately, I think it was up for Thomas to, like, coordinate meetings, to discuss things backwards and forwards with the things, but I think Thomas's position was ultimately made clear, but then other people didn't agree with that position. But then, yeah, I'm not going, at least for me, it seems impractical to do anything else than to say, for the individual projects because what can I do realistically to beyond that, apart from continue to talk to Thomas and try and work with him on people management skills and on considering ideas, and also to talk with Yarrow about how he presents these things and to try and help the two of them get on. I'm asking you, what more could I do?
You personally, I don't think you can do more.
Oh, okay, there you go. So that's what I'm checking. I mean, in some ways, maybe that's selfish. I fear that I am perceived to have failed to do something, or there was something I could have done, but anyway.
I just thought that it should be done in retrospective with more stakeholders than just in discussion. That's my opinion, but
Yeah, I don't know. I think that we would all agree that retrospectives involving all stakeholders are ideal, and we want to have as many of them as we can. At least, to Thomas's credit, I think he's now running these weekly dev meetings, which I think serve that purpose. So and everyone is free to join them. So.
Yes, could I just step in, please?
Please.
I also like to be a little bit selfish sometimes. The thing is here that when I came back, let's talk about this for a while. I came back and I found the application in a not too good of a state. We had like 12, 13 pull requests pending. This stuff were taking a long time. Brian was under a lot of pressure, and I tried to get in the loop for the first 2 weeks. It took a while to learn what has happened in the application, and I liked a lot of things what I saw, but I also didn't agree on certain things, and I tried to get an explanation why certain things have been done in the way that they were done. Without going into any specifics, I was the more, and try to understand this, the more questions I asked, the more I was bombarded by these requests of documentation, of workflow, clarification, who's doing what and what, and I can almost pinpoint the time, when this got out of hand, because I wasn't totally agreeing with certain people in this project about certain stuff that that has been done, and they requested certain things. They wanted me to change the way we were running this project in a way that I couldn't, because that would give up, that would mean that I had to give up certain core values that we built this project upon. For instance, loosening up the the development server to include spikes, to include experimental code. You remember this discussion, Sam? And I think you were in that discussion too, Pavel, if I'm not totally mistaken. And I was under a lot of pressure, and I actually agreed to that until I spoke to you, Sam, and I briefed you on it, and you said, no, wait a second, this is not this is not how we do this, And
well, or at least you can choose to do that, but there's a lot of risks associated.
Yeah, and so I went back to the group. I went back first to Brian and then to the group, and I said, listen, guys, this is a no-go because there are some risks involved, and blah blah blah. And then I was again under a lot of pressure about do this, do that. Why isn't that? How can you everything? And and I did an unfortunate thing. I closed off one pull request that had to do with introducing a new piece of technology that I wasn't convinced was the best thing to do. There was no user story behind it. I mean, there was no feature request from the client or from from anybody else. Blah blah blah. I took that stays with me. For every piece of technology we introduce to this site, for every Ajax call we make, for every spinning logo we have, that adds complexity. And again, pardon my French, but when the shit hits the fan, I am the one responsible for having this site up and going. Okay, and I want to, I love the great features we all can dream up, and describe. But at the end of the day, the simpler this application is, it's the better for us because it's stable, and it is not stable today because of some things that has been introduced. And sorry for saying that about Brian because he's not here right now, but Brian did okay some of them, and he and I had this discussion, and I told him, listen, if I were here, we would never have merged this in because this is not a good piece of software, and it's unnecessary, first of all, and it's also undocumented because there is nothing in Pivotal Tracker. So just to wrap this up, the more questions I was asking and being a little like what is this all about, the more pressure I got from Yarrow and from some other people, and so and now just a funny thing here is that I asked a fairly simple question: why we are using a piece of software that is totally undocumented. There is no Pivotal Tracker story. There isn't even a README file in the repository, and I was attacked for it. I was told to stay out of this. It's not my business. It's somebody else's project, and it's their decision. It's their decision to how to document. But it's okay to jump on me and tell me how I have to document things and how I have to run my project. But as soon as I was, I wasn't even criticizing or anything. I was asking a question, and I was attacked on that. So the standards that I'm asked to live by are not the same standards that some other people are prepared to follow. So it feels very frustrating. And just now, since we are also recording this, I was asked whether I was told that it was very unpolite not to discuss other things with other team members, and I can answer that question now. The thing is that I did discuss this with other members by posting, creating a story in Pivotal Tracker or a chore in Pivotal Tracker, because Pivotal Tracker is the platform for us to discuss new features. By creating a story there, I make that available to all team members or all stakeholders, and they can comment on it and come with inputs. And what I did, I haven't deployed that application yet. What I did was to fork that application. I'm preparing to do that. But Yarrow jumped on me for not talking to other people way ahead of time and without understanding that that was exactly what I was doing. I was talking to other people, but not in the way that he wanted me to talk to other people. And that is not his call to make.
I mean, I think it continues to be.
Well, what I had with kind of problems in my project. What we did with that, we discuss it together. For example, what you said is absolutely right. You came and you see some problems. What I think it was better to do in this case. Would be better to do is to say like, guys, we have that and that problem. What we saw now, what we see now, that we have problems with production environment. We have that problem. What is the causes of these problems? One of that causes because it wasn't stories in pivotal tracker. Another problem that we had in documentation. And guys, let's agree that every story should have documentation, should have this, should have, and while it doesn't have that, we cannot merge it. We cannot say it, and that wouldn't be your decision, like solely, and no one would blame you. It would be decision of the team how to make a better project, you know. And every sprint, every iteration, we would improve. I think it's the better way to handle these things, when to be solely responsible, because I'm absolutely sure that you do this you want this project to be better, but when you decide it alone or trying to discuss it, but like not with discussing like we have this problem and let's guys discuss how can we handle this problem. Let's hear what other members say what to do, like what Brian say, what Sam say, what Yaro say,
right.
and discuss how it's do better. Then write what we decide, and that's it, and stick to that, you know. Like, and then if anyone have again make pivotal make a story without pivotal tracker, I don't know, make something, we could discuss that problem and do not agree to implement that story because he make it's in not correct way, you know.
Inadequate. Yeah, I don't think anybody would disagree with anything that you're saying there, Pavel. That sounds absolutely right. I mean, I think, you know, not that I want, you know, I think, I think that the way that one manages pull requests, it sounds like a bit of a sidebar, but I'm going to come back to what you're saying. You know, when Thomas, you know, closed the pull request, I think, you know, it's the kind of thing that one needs to be extraordinarily sensitive about. I think Thomas was coming back and firefighting, and I think Thomas, you know, I mean, I don't mean to put anything to you. I think you and I discussed how, you know, that was, you know, had unfortunate side effects and maybe could have been handled differently. And I think, not that I wish to push anything onto you, Thomas, but I think you and I, we would all agree that there's things that we could do differently.
Absolutely.
Right. With, you know, but it's interesting that you when you describe that, Pavel. From I'm a little bit out of it. From my perception of seeing the discussions in the Slack chat and the pivotal and the so on, it seems to me that there was a fair amount of that discussion going on and a movement towards having retrospectives and trying to find time and space for people to discuss these things, and Thomas and Brian trying to specify that, you know, these. I mean, maybe I have a privileged channel to Thomas's ear, and so that I heard that more, and it somehow those messages that Thomas was sending out about procedure and so on were not getting through to other people, or, you know, people couldn't make the meetings or whatever it was. But it seems to me that, yeah, I don't know, there's a strange emphasis in what you say about, you know, it's going to come down to be the final decision of so and so and so. I don't think, if I look at, you know, the way it's been presented and the way that it's evolved, that it was kind of this thing where there was no discussion. And, you know, Thomas and Sam and Brian decided, nope, Thomas is the guy, and that's it, and that's all over. What I get the sense was is that, you know, that wasn't even necessarily an explicit thing. Like, you know, Thomas is opening to sway. It was the repeated demands of Yarov, like, what is the procedure? What is the, how many votes? What's the thing? And we said, well, you know, if you force us, if we must, you know, have some explicit written down procedure, then I guess at the end of the day, the way that it's working at the moment is that Thomas is the one who decides that things get merged in. And that was, you know, that's how it is. It doesn't mean that couldn't change in the future, right? But that was, it seemed that thing there that we had been forced to state was somehow unacceptable. And even having stated it, we were asked the question again and again and again. And that seems, like that's not the process that you're describing, which is like that we have a discussion and we put these things up for debate and we kind of come to a, which I think we all want, that kind of have the nice retrospective and discussions, and we should, with Agile, consider, everything. And I'm sure, well, I don't know, I mean, I will certainly, going forward with local support, I don't know that I have enough developers to really get a retrospective together, but, I'm totally open to the idea.
And also,
we might have a democratic or committee-based structure in the future. It's just that, there is how we are doing things now, and I don't know. Does that make sense, Pavel, or am I kind of off base?
It makes sense, but for me, when you have a discussion, for example, in Slack, but not in a specific meeting, that may long forever, and Yaro, because you do not have time box about it, you do not have to make a decision after like 5 minutes of discussion and so on. He asks and asks and asks again, and you don't know when to stop, and when you decide that you can do the discussion more, you just say no, we stop and that's it. It's just easier way if you can make that meeting. It's better to on that meeting.
I agree.
At the end of the day, right? But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm taking myself out of the stake. I'm trying to remove myself as a stakeholder from website one, like on the technical side, because I have 2 other projects to run and a full-time job and a family and so on. And so it's basically, I say kind of up to Thomas to run this. But Thomas is running these meetings and was having these meetings, and then Yaro couldn't make the meeting. So what do you do? It's
Yeah, the world cannot stop spinning just because people are not turning up.
Definitely.
That's
but guys, I need to stress out another thing. We started this project of January 8th, 2014. There's been 6 months of development before I took off, right? Or and so again, as Sam says, when we were pressed to state what are the rules, then yes, I am the one calling the shots at the end. If we cannot reach a consensus, if there is a conflict, because the buck does stay with me, I am the one responsible.
Right. And also,
but for the first 6 months, we were reaching consensus almost every day. We had lots of meetings. We had continuous retrospective. We were improving our methods, and things were falling apart. For some reason, when I came back, those 3 months when I was away created an atmosphere where some other people were calling the shots. Brian was not around to do a good enough job, unfortunately. So listen, I don't know if I was stepping on somebody's toes when I came back or whatever, but come on, there must be a reason why those first 6 months are like totally forgotten, and what we have now is a situation where we have lots of conflicts and developers that don't want to work on this project. And again, as I said, the more questions I asked, the inconvenient questions, the more attack I was experiencing, and stuff. So come on, let's just see it for what it is.
Of course, everybody has a different perspective on it. Anyway, I mean, I think we come back to we all agree, right, that we want to have retrospectives, we want to have review of our procedures. I mean, and
can we have them? Just can we make it and discuss some things that we had to discuss? If we had something to, if something is not clear, just let's do that meeting and ask guys to participate who really wants to.
Sure, yeah, but absolutely. But I think to me, that's what we've been doing. Like Thomas has been falling over himself to have meetings, like for example with John recently, and then people are not available to discuss the things at the despite kind of best efforts. So it's like, yeah, but yeah, we definitely all agree is to have those meetings. When I mention like Slack, I'm not saying just from Slack. There's also the regular scrums and so on, and all the other things going on. It's like I see these sort of things. I think we have as many meetings as maybe we can have some more meetings. I mean, it's all. But I guess 2 things there. I think is one that I'm sure, Thomas, that you would reserve the right that if some point in the future that you were convinced, let's say that the Austria project goes on to be sort of an extraordinary success, and you might say, well, let's adopt a committee model, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
you're not going to rule it out, right?
No.
No, right. It's you know.
I'm just convinced that the you know, especially with the dev team that we have now, and you know, for what happened.
It doesn't seem like the right model for now.
And for you know, guys, what the Austria people are doing now are basically the same thing that we were doing in Website 1, but they have formalized certain rules. You know, we were reaching consensus before. We had a great atmosphere in this project. Okay, so that's what I feel. I mean, or perhaps I'm totally blind to my own faults and shortcomings, but we achieved a lot under a much short period of time.
I think it was very unfortunate that you had to go away, in that I think that created a sort of a vacuum in the direction of the project that you had been guiding for a long time. But you know, things are the way they are. I guess I will just we should sort of wrap it up. I'll mention in closing that I've been very interested to hear from Pavel about how his company runs large projects with the consensus. I will note that Linux, which is arguably the most successful open source project ever, that it has a single senior architect who ultimately decides yes or no if things are merged into the code base, right? Mm-hmm. So we have, at least to my knowledge, for open source, a shining example of that particular methodology, which I think is partly where that methodology comes from. Maybe I should have been more explicit in my source of inspiration for that. You know, when forced to define, you know, to precisely the procedures that we have. Anyway, but yeah, I think we are all in agreement that, you know, we want to achieve consensus. We want to have, you know, relatively frequent retrospective meetings that will allow us to improve our procedure and make everything better. I guess there's just a differing perception in, you know, the extent to which that was supported or facilitated in the past. So I guess, but you know, enough of the past. We can just say, going forward, we all want to have. We want to try and achieve consensus, and we want to have, you know, follow the agile method and have lots of review amongst stakeholders about what are the procedures, right?
Yeah, when you shouldn't like every time involved in the discussion about these things. You know, you just say, "Right, guys, we have a special meeting to do that. Let's do it there," and that's it. You know, and everyone can write something on the board for preparation for that meeting, what concerns he have, for example, and we can discuss them and decide about them. But what I saw that Thomas and Brian were involved in to spend many times on trying to describe something instead of just having like half an hour to do that, and we do not have more than half an hour to do it, so we need to decide something and just decide. But for example, what was happening?
I'm not following it there.
Your perception, Pavel, is that Thomas and Brian were, you know, saying we don't have time to discuss this further, and they were making, you know, from your perspective, you know, decisions to say let's go in this direction. And you thought that there maybe those decisions could have been put off for longer and had more discussion and involved more stakeholders before those decisions were made.
I think that this discussion should be put off, yes, and we should discuss it on meeting when more stakeholders will be there, and that's that's it, and not more than half an hour or an hour. That's a
reasonable point.
Yeah. Again, just a quick comment on that, because I was accused about making a decision over somebody else's head, you know, without taking his opinions into account. But think about this, Pavel. By introducing new technology without saying anything about it, just, you know, making that available in a pull request, he was making a decision for us, everybody else in this project. Okay. You know, it's a discussion about standards. I specifically invited him to this meeting. The agenda for this meeting was set. It was said that this is what we're going to talk about. He was, you know, he could have joined us. He also beforehand posted some comments on Slack in regard of you know, with some links and stuff. And we had enough to know what his position was. Okay.
But it wasn't retrospective. I thought it was regular Scrum. I was there, and I thought it was just regular Scrum.
It was a meeting especially devoted to that issue, among other issues. But it was it was a dev meeting, and it was said that we will discuss that. I can pull that recording for you, Pavel, for some other time, but trust me for now.
Okay, okay. I was on that meeting. I participated in discussion. I understand. Yeah, I just didn't think that it was like retrospective meeting. I thought it was just regular Scrum.
It was the regular AmericasScrum, but it went on for an hour, or in fact 2.5 hours, didn't it?
Maybe, but it doesn't matter. If we have special
Right.
discussion and someone can't discuss, won't appear, then it is his or her problem.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah, right. Well, exactly. And you know, the thing is, that then even that decision, I mean, that's the funny thing, is that decision say that's not the end of the world. Like if you know, it can be brought up in the next meeting, but then the thing that was attacked was not, you know, like, can we discuss this again? It was like, this is so unreasonable that people are just taking this decision without, you know, allowing the, you know, it's a very anyway. Let's wrap this up here. Thomas, maybe you want to create another hangout where I can do for the client meeting. But I think a very useful discussion to get this out. I'm looking forward to review it for my memoirs in the future. But I think I'll drop out there because I just want to say hi to somebody here. And but yeah, Thomas, I'll look forward to a link from you to help you out with the other stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye bye.